Hey there, I'm Neil. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the host and producer of Pause and Rewind, the podcast that chats to changemakers, thought leaders and role models who all share a common goal. They're striving to make the world a more inclusive place. And, let's face it, we need it. Each guest has a unique story when it comes to doing their thing, and we often know who people are in the now, but how much do we really know about them? Pause and Rewind takes a moment to explore the experiences, realisations and relationships in my guest's life that led them to where and who they are now, because everyone loves an origin story. We'll dive into tales, anecdotes and a little of what makes our guest tick. So whether you're here for insights or inspo or simply want to know about your heroes, this podcast is for you. You might never know someone's story, but if you pay attention, you'll hear it, you'll see it and you'll feel it. So, are you ready to pause and rewind? Hey there, welcome to another episode of Pause and Rewind. And during this conversation, I get to chat to someone that I am so privileged and lucky to work with on a daily basis. And that is my colleague, manager and friend, Jon-Paul Vicari, aka JP. JP is the managing director of We Create Space, where we both work. He is also a fierce advocate for mental health and well-being, LGBTQ plus inclusion, and all things inclusion generally, really. JP is someone that I really admire in terms of how they show up in the world through their professional experience, their creativity, and their fierce advocacy and allyship. As I said, I will get to work with JP every day, but it's not often that we get to sit and have a big conversation about our past. So it was really, really great to have JP as a guest on Pause and Rewind. As I say, I love spending time with JP. It's always joy, it's always silly, and we bounce off each other, as you'll hear in this conversation. So hope that you enjoy it as much as I did. Listen in, and here it is. Let me know what you think. Cheers. I just want to pop a little trigger warning in here because we do talk about mental health and suicide. So please do take care of yourself whilst listening. Hey there, JP or Jon-Paul. Welcome to Pause and Rewind. It is great, but also a little bit weird to have you right here.
I know this is exciting and strange, but also feels on brand for both of us.
Absolutely. For those that might not be aware, JP and I work together daily, so this is probably our third or fourth call of the day. But so this is a little bit different for us, so bear with us if it gets a bit weird.
It's going to be good. Even if it's weird, I like a little bit of weird.
Absolutely. I'm going to start with the question that I ask everyone, and that is, what does the world look like for Jon-Paul Vicari, aka JP, right now?
Well, that's a loaded question. But I presently, in terms of physical space, am in London. I just moved to the UK about 6 or 7 weeks ago now. So still finding my footing a little bit. I spent quite a bit of time here last year before making the decision to move. And so, sort of dealing with all of the things that have come up with moving to a new country and uprooting my life. I think there's the political backdrop of the world that is quite heavy, and I'm maybe making light of it and how I'm talking about it in this moment, but I think it weighs on all of us. But I think as an American coming out of that and moving to a different country, there's a lightness now that I have that has been missing, that I'm really excited to embrace. I think like everyone, work is crazy and it's hectic and it's really busy, which is a good thing and also not so good thing sometimes. So I think I'm just getting adjusted to things like commuting to WeWork every day to work. That's as someone who's worked predominantly just from home for 10 years, like getting used to just like new rhythms and routines when it comes to that, but still being able to find time for things like going for a walk or like cooking dinner, seeing people. There's a big calibration happening right now in my life, but all for the best. Like I can't complain about any of it.
What are you enjoying the most about the big move?
I mean, without spoiling too much of some other things that we're probably going to talk about, like I've spent a lot of the last 2 years traveling, and not having sort of stable or consistent existence anywhere. And so that's the thing I'm enjoying the most right now is that there's some stability in my life again. I had it when I was back, in Michigan with my family and staying with family when I wasn't traveling, but it was always sort of leading up to like, where am I going next? Or like, what's the next thing that I'm going to go do? So now that I have, yeah, just a little more stability. That's the thing I think I'm enjoying the most. Like to
Yeah.
be able to set those routines and feel like I can get into a flow again.
I mean, I love a routine. And stability is very underrated.
You know what it is? It's someone who's always sort of had a plan and like been a type A person. Always sort of know where I was going. Like I've given up a lot of that over the last couple of years to figure out what it is that I do want, and what routines and stability can look like. And so I've enjoyed not having those things, but I also recognize now I'm in a state of my life again where I want to prioritize them. And it's exciting now because it's what I want to do and not what I feel like I should do.
Yeah, yeah. Um, some people that are listening might sound a little bit surprised to hear you talk about the lightness of coming to the UK as an American, because obviously things are so heavy in America, but for anyone in the UK, it feels pretty bloody heavy here as well, right? Are you still managing to maintain that lightness, given how heavy it does seem in the UK as well? I mean, it does seem that America seems really extreme in how it is politically, but it also is quite challenging here at the moment. Are you able to maintain that lightness?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it is just different, right? I think
Mm,
there's um, the reality of the US is that there is somebody currently in power and a political party in power who is actively doing damage and harm to communities that I'm a part of and that I care about. And that's different than some of the context of being in the UK, where the power or the party who's in power right now isn't as bad in comparison. And there won't be an election here for another 4 years. And so there is some security there of like, some of the more extreme views in the UK aren't going to have much political power between now and the next election. So I think there's a little bit of safety that I feel in that. Whereas in the US, like that safety has all been eroded because the political party running the government right now is fully in charge, and enacting all of these things that are harmful.
mm. That's fair. That's fair. I mean, it just feels batshit all over at the moment, the world generally, right? Particularly as you said, community that we're part of, communities that we care for, specifically talking about the trans and non-binary community here as well. And how are you taking care of yourself? What does self-care and well-being against these quite challenging times look and feel like to you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've always been a big reader, but the last few years I've not read maybe as much as I have in the past. But this year I've made a real deliberate attempt to read like some epic fantasy, things that are really long, and have multiple books because I want to just be able to pour myself into it, and sort of escape all of the noise and things happening in the background. So that's the thing I've been doing and enjoying the most has just been reading books that sort of are completely different worlds, like have no, I don't want to say like no correlation to what's happening, right? Like that's obviously not true, but like are different enough, and sort of separate enough where I can escape that way. I also moved. Like that was a big thing of part of my self-care. And like that's not something everyone can do, right? Like I'm really fortunate that I had the access and a variety of ways to be able to do that, but that was a massive thing for me. I have really limited sort of my media and just like news intake over the last few months. I'm the kind of person where I get really involved and feel like I have to read everything to stay informed. And that can be really damaging for me. And so I've taken sort of a step back and like really regulate the time that I spend reading news. I read enough to know what's happening and sort of what actions I can take, but not, reading like or scrolling 5 or 6 hours a day to try to just consume everything out there. So yeah, those are some basic stuff. I mean, I don't know, I guess the simple things of like, I try to go for at least one walk a day. I try to put nutritious stuff in my body because I know like when I feel really stressed or feel really overwhelmed, like I gravitate towards like things that maybe aren't the most nutritious and like then that makes me not sleep well. And so it has this sort of snowball effect. So I just try to control the things I can control and go from there.
Absolutely. Um, I mean, great tips there. I love the idea of losing ourselves in the fantasy. However, staying informed is very much part of your world, being in DEI. Like, it's something that we can't escape from. We also would not want to escape from. Tell us about your like kind of like your where that all sits within DEI in terms of kind of, your mental health journey, your journey into it, and the state of DEI right now, according to you.
You know, I guess on a personal note, I do a lot of stuff to protect my mental health because I am a person who has depression and anxiety, and I've recently come off of medication. And so, like, there are some guardrails I have to have in place to be able to maintain a healthy existence. When it comes to work, that becomes slightly more nuanced because, to your point, right, we do have an obligation to stay informed and to read. And so I try to focus more on like reading research or reading books as opposed to reading news. Because again, I think like news is one avenue to learn, but it's not the only avenue. And so I also think, and I have said this hundreds of times, in individual conversations and with clients, like often what we hear about DEI is so over indexed on companies who are deciding to maybe strip back or like stop doing stuff. But they're brands that typically get the most airwaves anyway. And that by and large, research and most organizations are still standing by their commitments, still willing to invest and to live their values, right? Like, I think anyone who sort of proclaims like they're not a fan of DEI also is sort of proclaiming like my personal values I guess like don't include most people or like are rooted in like disrespect or intolerance. And I don't think most people actually believe that about themselves. And so I think there's sort of a duty of care we have as people in this space to combat that. And so again, that requires us to read and to be in touch with our community. And community could be any number of things, right? That could be queer people attending an event. That could be the people at the coffee shop that I interact with who maybe don't want to be my friend, but I'm going to make them be my friend. Like there's all these different ways for us to collect information. And I think as a practitioner in this space, like I think it again falls on me to decide how I use that information, and then bring that into the business world. I will, I guess, not cover the fact that like it's tough, it's really hard, it's taking much longer than usual and what we've experienced previously to like work with clients or win work. But again, I think for us, it's when we meet that friction point, like it's a it's a challenge, but it's a good challenge. It's not because people aren't wanting to do it, but it's just finding ways that actually integrate it into meaningful like measurements or impact within any given organization. And truthfully, as someone who came from an industry that was so heavily focused on metrics and data, like I think that's an avenue and an area where, DEI really has not progressed. It needs to, is on the measurement and the data and the impact, because every other department typically has KPIs that they're being measured against and there's systems in place to make sure that that's happening. And so I think we can be part of that change. And that's really exciting to me. And I also love a challenge. Like I really enjoy, I don't know, like not arguing with people about like why we should do it. But I think again, sort of we can't say we're inclusive if we're not willing to hear a multitude of perspectives on why people may think that this is not the work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Can affirm to anyone listening that JP is shit hot on both metrics and debating with people and ensuring that people become your friend. You bring such a fierce gentleness and energy and likability to everything that you do, whether it's your writing, the way you host events, the way you work with clients. Like I've learned so much from you in the couple of years I've been working with you. And is that something you've brought over from your previous careers? Is that something that's always been there? Tell me more.
Yeah, I think it's always been there. And I think it's one of those talents I didn't know I had until people started telling me that was their experience in working with me.
Mm.
In the industry I was working in before, it was recruitment marketing, HR tech, like helping organizations navigate hiring people and coming up with strategic plans with that, working at different job boards. I'd a handful of clients in particular who constantly sort of said to me, like, your reputation is being like the nicest guy in the industry. And I I value that much more than maybe being like the best at the job, or being the like loudest voice in the room. I think I've spent so much of my life just trying to navigate and figure out like what it is to be authentic and be genuine. And so now I just sort of bring that to everything. And it comes through. And, I think for some people it translates really well. And for others it might not. And like, that's okay. But, I think the difference is now as an adult and with the benefit of hindsight, like I don't let that stop me from still being myself. So I appreciate that. Like it is, again, like it's not something I've, I guess, noticed about myself or said like, oh, I'm like going to make sure I do this. It has just sort of been as an evolution of my own identity journey where this has sort of come up, and how I engage in the world.
Trust me, it's noticed and appreciated, like wholeheartedly. But I also love that you might be the nice guy, but you're also not afraid to be the bad guy. You're
Yeah.
not afraid to call out shit.
Well, look, I think that's part of being genuine, right? Like, I think
Yeah.
it's people need honesty, and sometimes honesty can be difficult. And, I'm not a
Mm.
big, like, oh, radical candor. Like, I actually don't think that that's always the best. Like, I think there's a difference between being honest and being informed, and having a way to back sort of that honesty up and having transparent relationships, especially with clients. Like, there's something really fundamental about when you're entering a partnership in business that it has to be built on two, organizations or individuals just being able to have very real conversations. And sometimes that means, I have to hear like what I've done is wrong. And like, no one really likes hearing that, but I'm also like willing to, and I mean, from working with me, like I say all the time, like, if you want me to be the bad cop, like I'm happy to play that role because like I think it drives value. I think
Yeah.
transparency drives value. I think, telling people what has worked in your experience and, using your expertise to ground that in, has value and impact that goes beyond just sort of the transactional, like we're exchanging revenue or we're exchanging services with each other.
Yeah. It's always a very mutual thing with best interests at heart, and a genuinely belief of this. I'm trying to do this for the right reasons, and yeah, no, it's yeah. I'm always happy to play bad cop too. I feel like we balance it between us.
I think we have a Halloween costume in mind, like good cop, bad cop. It's almost Halloween. Just spoiler alert for whenever this is launched. It's October 22nd. So
And this is going out just after Halloween, but I mean, you love Halloween as much as I do, so
it's
I have a
true. I
feeling
do.
we'll be longing it out. JP, I'm so excited to dive into your origin story and get to know you even more than I already do. Are you ready to pause and rewind?
Yes, let's do it.
Here we go. Take me back. Tell me all about little John Paul.
Well, I'd like to tell you that Little John-Paul was so much different than the version you see today, but in reality, I honestly don't know if that's true. My hair might be shorter now. Like I've always sort of had like big curly hair. I've always been an extrovert. I've always been really social. Um, like I think I get so much joy out of being around people, and like I don't even always have to be talking to someone, but I really love being around people. And I think that really comes from my family. Like I come from a really close family. Like we spent so much time together. My mom and my siblings and my cousins and aunts and uncles and my grandparents. I've again, like we just are always together. And so I don't necessarily do well when I don't have other people around me. But yeah, I was like the kid who would like go up to strangers at the grocery store and like try to start a conversation. Like my mom had to put me on a leash at one point, like I just like maybe brought a silly factor to life as a kid that I have just carried on as an adult. But yeah, I mean, like I guess you could find me reading a lot as a kid. My mom was not like a watch a lot of TV or like play video games type of parent. So she was like, here's some books, like figure it out. So I started reading at a really young age. My family's really big on food. So there's always like a big meal, and snacks. Yeah, I think more than anything, like if I were to sort of sum up like what I was like as a kid, like I would say joyful. Like just all the pictures of me, like I always have like a really big smile. I'm always having fun. Yeah, I've always enjoyed having joy in my life.
I can definitely see that in you now, and that love of community being a continual factor, that love of having family, be that family or chosen family around you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it took me a long time, I think, to sort of navigate getting to having close chosen family. Like there was, and we'll talk about it, but like there are moments where like maybe I didn't feel like I had that. And so now that I have it in so many areas of my life, I really do cling to it because yeah, I need it. It's part of what makes me me. Without that, like I don't necessarily know if I would have my own identity.
Yeah. It's actually a really freeing point in life when you realize you need it and you kind of like can let go of that uh independence and be a bit vulnerable and say, I actually need this around me.
Yeah, and I think maybe not to over speak on like the future and all of this, but like I've spent so much time sort of by myself over the last couple of years traveling,
Yeah.
and it's been really meaningful. But what's been more meaningful is sharing those experiences with other people when I've been able to like sit down with them, and talk to them about it. So it was really great, but sharing it is what has made it even better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, looking forward to being part of that here in London. So
Yes,
um
me too.
tell me a favorite anecdote that you've heard about yourself growing up.
Oh God, when I was thinking about this question, the first thing that came to mind um, was when I was three, my mom and dad took my sisters and I to Disney World in Florida, and I was obsessed with Dumbo at the time. I
Okay.
watched that movie morning, noon, and night, like wore the VHS tape out. Like I watched it so much. I had a stuffed elephant that I took with me everywhere, and I forgot it. And so I was apparently like inconsolable, like just could not be soothed by anything else. And so my grandparents had to overnight that stuffed animal to our hotel in Florida. Um, and when I think about it, I'm like, oh, I've kind of just been like over dramatic my entire life. And again, it's like one of those things that like, there's so many instances growing up where I'm like, God, I'm just a little drama queen. And I'm like in on the joke of it now, and I love that about myself.
And would another stuffed toy not do, would another stuffed Dumbo not do it? It had to be your one.
Absolutely. You would think being at Disney, it's like, oh, like
Uh,
any stuffed
that's
Dumbo
where
is
my
like
head
going to
went.
be the trick, but nope, not for
Can
me.
can I ask, as a Disney fan, I've actually got my Figment. I don't know if you remember Figment from Epcot Center, the little dragon. I've got my Figment up on from when I was about 8 on the side over there.
I love
Um,
it.
and what was it about Dumbo that you loved?
It's interesting. I don't know if it was just because I loved elephants at the time, or just like the color, or like I'm a big horror movie fan, and like Dumbo's actually a little
Quite
scary.
scary,
Like
isn't it?
there are parts, and so like I don't know if there was just something there that like I found really fascinating. Um, Also, like I'm a big mama's boy, always have been, always will be, and like I think there's something there as well of just like my
Yeah,
relationship with my mom, where it feels like the Disney movie that represents like me and my mom's relationship the best.
that's so beautiful. I've not watched Dumbo for years. How often do you watch it?
So I haven't watched it in a while, but I mean I watched it probably within the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And there's still that part with like the different like faces and the lights when they're in the circus tent that's like really freaky. And I was like, how did I love this as a kid?
I most relate to the train going up the hill. I can make it. Yeah.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, who knows? Maybe it was that too that I really loved. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I just knew I was always going to be tired.
I've not watched it for years. All right, you've inspired me to watch it. What were you like at school?
So I guess maybe surprise to no one. Like, I was definitely a teacher's pet. Like, I was the like pleasure to have in class kid. Um, I was very academic. Like I really enjoyed excelling at school. Um, I think it's interesting. Like I switched schools a couple times as a kid, just like we had moved. And then the US sort of school system, like you go to different schools depending on the grade. And so you don't always stay with like people that maybe you were in classes with. Um, so that was challenging, but yeah, I would say like, the good parts of school I enjoyed was the fact that I excelled at it and I was like really good at like being a student, like whatever sort of that meant, and like got good grades. I think the difficult part was like I was bullied from a really young age. And that experience, I think, of just sort of like other people identifying who you are before you even have like agency or language to
Mm.
identify yourself, um, is really difficult. I remember I was in second grade, so I was like, I don't know, 7 or 8, and there was like a kid who would always choke me on the playground. And like I remember sitting in the office when I told my mom about it, and then like the principal's solution was like to give the kid a pillow to choke instead. And it's like I think about that now, I'm just like, this is insane. Like, but I guess like I don't know. It's really weird, but I was bullied a lot for a lot of different reasons, right? Sometimes it was because I was really effeminate or, a sissy. Sometimes it was because I'm Lebanese and like Arab. And I think, there have been multiple moments where all I kind of wanted was someone to stand up for me. But
Yeah.
like I never had that experience in school where like a teacher or somebody else sort of like took my side or like did something to protect me. Like the only person who ever really did anything was my mom.
How did you got this joyful kid, like I'm here picturing this joyful kid, and then you've got this really awful stuff going on. And thanks for sharing. It's something that I relate to. It's something that is so universal amongst us in the queer community of that experience at such a young age. And again, people putting labels on you without you even getting to that point by yourself. How did that manifest in terms of how you showed up in spaces and what you thought about the world?
I struggle with this honestly, because I did such a good job of masking
Right.
all of the things that were happening to me and just constantly put forward like that everything was fine, right? Like, eh, yeah, so I guess that's how I managed was I just sort of pretended like everything was okay. I didn't always let in or let on that like that stuff was happening or that it was affecting me. I mean, internally it was, but like externally, like sort of how I carried myself didn't really shift.
Yeah. You're such an advocate for mental health and well-being. Like when I come to you with a problem, like you are one of the best people to go to because very early in our working relationship, you came to me, I came to you, and you said, "Are you coming to me for a solution, or do you just want to talk?" Right? So you're such an advocate for it. You always know what to say. Do you think that that passion about showing up in that way now stems from that needing to mask back then?
Yeah, I think some of it does. I think a lot of what I do in my life is rooted or centered in wanting to fulfill things that maybe I didn't have or that I couldn't give to myself, in a previous version. So yeah, I think there's that. I think honestly, maybe more than anything, it's because I've gone through so much therapy, and I've like picked up different things. But again, I think one of my I don't know if it's like a secret talent because I don't think it's that much of a secret, but I think something I've learned through sort of all of the experiences I've had, is just sort of the depth of compassion that I can give. And I
Mm.
think that serves me really well in a lot of ways. Like sometimes it can be too much to the point where I like take care of others way more than I take care of myself. And so like there's a balance to be struck there. But yeah, I think there is something there of like I didn't have that, and so I want to make sure no one else does.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
like no
yeah.
one else has to go.
Yeah, no, I can really feel that, and that compassion really comes through in the way that you step into situations, the way you advocate through your writing, through the events that we cater, through your fierce advocacy. So that does really shine through. Did the I'd love to ask about teenage years then, did teenage years look pretty similar in terms of that constant bullying and feeling that you needed to mask. And then I guess off the back of that, where did realizations around queerness come in?
Yeah, I guess sort of in reviewing your questions, like this was the one where I felt it sort of most of my body because teenage years were probably the worst time of my whole life.
Same.
I think there were sort of two or three things happening all at the same time. One, sort of just getting more comfortable with my own body and like understanding myself and recognizing that, I felt differently than, a lot of other boys my age did. So there was one. When I was 11, my grandfather died, and it was a really traumatic experience for me. And so I was dealing with a lot of like grief and depression that was really unresolved and like manifesting in ways that I have only really recognized as an adult. Um, I think the bullying, continued like, I mean, gosh, even when I was like running for like student council president, right? Like people were writing in RuPaul on ballots instead of my name as like a way to like be cruel. And it's just like all of this is sort of happening, and then 9/11 happens in America, and there's all of this, anti-Arab, anti-Muslim rhetoric, and hatred happening, and so there's just like this massive compression, of all of these things that I don't know how to talk about with anyone, and uh, I guess should I give a content warning? Like, yeah, I probably should. Content warning. I attempted suicide when I was 15. That was obviously unsuccessful because I'm here in the present talking to you. But I didn't disclose that I had attempted like until I started therapy at 18. Like no one in my family knew at the time. And so that sort of entire experience has been, I think, probably the most pivotal thing in my life of like my approach to life now is rooted in the fact that like I made this attempt and that I refuse to go back to anything that resembles anything close to what that experience was like. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
Yeah.
that's what my answer would be about like teenage years.
Yeah, I mean that's rough. That's incredibly rough for someone to go through at such a young age. The bullying aside, which can leave scars, to then reach that conclusion at 15, and then to sit with that for 3 years until you told anyone. How did you get through those 3 years? Was it a case of again just continue head down? And then what did conversations look and feel like 3 years after when you started telling people?
Yeah, I think those 3 years went by really fast, and I had already done such a good job of masking that it kind of wasn't any additional work. Like I kind of just I woke up the next day and was like, okay, well, like I messed up at this too. Like I'm not good at anything, so like I'm just gonna have to figure it out, right? Um, but then that following year, I met my now best friend. We met at like a mock government leadership camp, and it was the first time I recognized that I had someone who just saw me for me. Like there was sort of no mask to be worn. There was no, like I didn't have to like identify myself and like label myself. Like we just saw each other and like loved each other. And that honestly, like that's what saved me. Like that's what got me through, like until the point where I was able to, go seek professional help, was just having like one person. And so that's why I really don't think you can underestimate the value of like the impact any individual can have for anyone else. Like, I mean, he knows this, like he and I talk about it a lot as adults now of like, he showed up in a time in my life where like I needed that.
Beautiful. And then what prompted you to start talking about that suicide attempt with people? Who did you tell, and what were the conversations like?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't disclose to anyone for a really long time.
Mm.
I mean, even in therapy, like I was with my therapist like maybe a year or two before we really even started to like get there. Um, and my family knows now. Like I talk very openly about it now, but like, I didn't tell my mom and my sisters until 2021. So like a very sort of recent
Wow.
evolution in that. Um, I had a lot of shame around it. Like it's interesting. Um, there isn't much that I have shame about in my life, but like that's one thing where there's significant shame because with the benefit of hindsight now, it's like I know I could have asked for help. Like I know I would have had the support, but I just didn't in the moment. Like, I think anyone who struggles with mental health, like your brain is so manipulative and sometimes it's to protect you, but then sometimes it can actually do more harm than good. And so, for me, uh, yeah, I just like couldn't get out of that shame spiral of like feeling like I could talk about it. So that's probably the one thing in my life where even now, like in this moment, like I can feel my body like I'll be a little bit tense because like there is still some work to be done there. And like I don't want to say I love talking about it, but it's important to talk about it. It's part of how I manage my mental health now. It's how I like make sure I don't get back into that place because I know what it's like to not be able to talk about it.
Yeah. 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 And has there been, yeah, yes, it sounds like it's still a work in progress, but there's healing going on. And do you feel the support now that you needed then?
Absolutely. And I think that's the difference is like I know now that so much of what I internalized as shame as a kid was not actually anything to do with me. Like it was all I was internalizing the shame other people felt, right? About their own bias or notions or whatever it is around, my identities. It had nothing to do with me. Like I didn't grow up being told to be ashamed of stuff. Like my family is very proud of like who we are and where we come from. Like that's what I grew up in. So for me to experience shame or to feel like I have to keep certain things to myself or like feel like I'm wrong or deficient in some way, like none of that was sort of my own internal dialogue. It was all what I was internalizing from what everyone else was saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is also a freeing point to get to when you can say this wasn't on me.
Yeah, and I mean, look, like obviously you and I have talked a lot about sort of our own journeys and like being queer and what that means, and like I think everyone can relate to that. Like I think shame is it's kind of like grief. It's like a unifying emotion. That doesn't mean it's good, right? Like it's always the best thing to like relate to someone with, but I think it's also something people can understand.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I mean, I've heard Brené Brown talk so much about it in terms of it being such a unifying experience that we all go through, and something that we can all actually make such a difference with other people in removing that as a factor for people.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that like without doing all of the work and like going to therapy and being willing to be vulnerable with myself and like be able
Yeah,
to explore that, like, I think we talk about vulnerability and a lot of what that means to be vulnerable with someone else, but I think there's also something really important for us to think about being vulnerable with ourselves and like our capacity and willingness to have that tough internal introspective dialogue conversation, whether that's, you just have it in your head or you write it down or like you do it, like sort of how we're doing now, where it's like all of these things are happening in my head and I'm being vulnerable with myself and like how I'm processing it. Like, I think we have to bring awareness to that if like we want to make meaningful change.
for sure. And it's not easy. I think that what you talk about the work, and it is work. It's not easy at all. I've talked that we've talked about my struggle to be vulnerable, and actually up until the point that I had no other choice but to be vulnerable. And sometimes it's a bit easier for others, but it's hard work to get there.
Yeah. And, I think it's sort of like we hear, and this is not to discredit Brene Brown, like she's brilliant, but like I think some of what we hear are just like the sound bites of like the things that are going to drive engagement. But like what we often don't talk about is the cost of being vulnerable and like the
Yeah.
energy it takes and the mental fortitude it takes. And not everyone has that just readily available all the time. Like it's a bank that can be depleted and also requires to be replenished. And so like vulnerability has a cost to everyone. And we have to just navigate that individually. And sometimes it's going to be stronger and sometimes it's not. And like, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I say, as someone that affords me quite a lot of vulnerability in your time in our working together, it really goes a hell of a long way in helping to get to the point of being able to express it and feeling replenished in it.
Yeah, and I think I would reflect the same thing back to you of like when we have those conversations, like your vulnerability makes it easier for me to be able
Yeah.
to do it with you when, I need to, or if I need to give it to you, like it's reciprocal. And I
Yeah.
think again, sort of like that can't be underscored enough that like it's not a one-way street. Like vulnerability is meant to be reciprocated.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. And what happens next in your journey? So you kind of, you're at 16, you meet this amazing best friend who kind of like, gives you what you need for that time. I guess I'm curious as to what point things felt like they lifted after that, and then what happens next in your journey.
Yeah, I guess the next sort of significant milestone for me was going to college, or as you like to say here, uni. I'm actually wearing my Michigan State University
Hey.
sweatshirt, which is a very common thing for me. Go green. Um, and going to university is sort of another thing that like saved my life. Like it was the first time I had some sort of separation between where I grew up and like people that I've always known and my family. And yes, that's really hard, but it was something really important to me to go do. And granted, it's only like an hour away from where I grew up, but it was far enough that like it felt like a completely new place. And that's really where I started to explore a little bit more about who I was and in all ways, like not even just, my queerness or being gay, like about who I wanted to be in the world and like what values I had and I guess identifying sort of like my own political beliefs and like how I was going to manage my time and like my schedule. Like I'd never had to worry about any of that stuff before. And yeah, so college was a wonderful experience. I mean, it was not without its challenges, but like overall for me, it was some of the best years of my life. I met so many of my closest friends today there. I had a job at the time. I was just like a sales associate at like a teen retailer. And I, yeah, it's like a place I felt safe to sort of start to play with expressing more of my sexual identity. I had a manager who's like one of my best friends today. Um, she sort of gave me permission. I don't even know if it was like actual like verbal permission, but like she didn't stop me, I guess. From like wearing like girls' skinny jeans and like wearing super tight t-shirts and like again just sort of like experimenting with like how I wanted to present myself and like I could be effeminate and like use my hands. Like I'm using my hands a ton now. Like that's something I would always sort of try to play down because I was like, oh, this makes me like not look like a man, like whatever the hell that means. Um, but it gave me space and it gave me room to breathe, and that's what I needed more than anything. So yeah, college was wonderful. I loved my time there. And it also sort of led me in this path of figuring out, like I was saying, like what my values were and how I wanted to live. There's a program at Michigan State, and it's very common in the US, in most universities, called alternative spring break. It's where instead of going sort of like on a traditional spring break trip to like go party and like be on the beach or, like do that kind of stuff, the school organizes these volunteer trips to different sites around the US and some international sites. And you go and you volunteer for the week. And so that was sort of my first like experience with queer culture outside of like the radius of my existence in Michigan. And so I went to San Francisco. All of the volunteer work was focused on HIV activism and advocacy. So it's like the first time I'd met anyone who had HIV, was like living and, some people, yes, were not living well, but other people were, going to work, had meaningful lives, like all of this sort of stigma that I'd always heard about HIV. It's like not the actual reality, right? Like you're seeing people do all of these things that you have been told like queer people can't do. It was the first time I really experienced like non-white queerness. San Francisco is a very multicultural city, very diverse. And so there just I got to see like drag queens for the first time and like trans people for the first time. I'm like getting a little emotional just talking about it because it
Yeah.
just I didn't know that there was such a plethora and like beauty to what our community could look like.
How did it all feel?
It was overwhelming, honestly, and like there were other queer people on the trip who were experiencing some of that. So yeah, so there were other queer people sort of experiencing that. And I just, yeah, it was one of those moments in life where like you just kind of exhale
Mm.
and you're like, oh, like this is a place again where like I don't have to wear a mask. Like I just belong. And there's no right or wrong way to be. It's just you show up and like that's what's embraced. And like I remember walking into the Castro from a bus stop with again another like very close friend of mine now, and like she and I talk about this picture a lot. Like we took a picture of the Pride rainbow flag like flying over the Castro, and like I just remember like the two of us like hugging each other and just like sharing in that moment like what it meant to just see something so vibrant and like yeah, I mean it's just like standing tall in the sky, like saying like we're queer, like you're okay to be here, like this is our space, like yeah, I don't know. It was just one of the most magical things that I think has ever happened to me.
And you're a massive advocate for volunteering. I know that we share that. Was that volunteer trip what steered you to where you are now, do you think?
Yeah, I definitely do because I did that trip 3 years in a row.
Okay. Wow.
Um, that's how much I loved it and like how much meaning it had to me. I mean, I was leading the program like all of alternative spring break, my final year at school. So
It's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Is the program still going?
it is. Yeah, and again, it's a very common thing on many university campuses.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool. Um, what did early career look like off the back of that then? Like, off the back of having this experience, your values have been very much shaped by college and that experience in particular. What was early career like?
Yeah, so I was in retail, like I said.
Hmm.
I'd worked my way up. So my last year at university, I was also a store manager at a retail store. So like working full time and school full time. And so I kind of felt like, okay, I have a like career path. Like, I don't have to like sort of go through what all of my friends are experiencing of like looking for internships and applying for jobs. Like, I had benefits, I had a good salary, like, and so that's what I did for a really long time. I was in retail until like 2013.
What was the moment? Do you remember? Was there a definitive moment where you found your kind of destination as such in inclusion?
Honestly, I think it was going on those volunteer trips.
Right.
And I honestly like I think regardless of the job, regardless of industry, inclusion is everyone's work.
Hmm.
Like it's not just the big stuff of like being an ally to queer people or being anti-racist. Like inclusion is so much broader than that. And
Mm.
so I think every job I've had has always been about serving others. And I think that's actually the work of inclusion is serving others and
Yeah.
helping people achieve more than what they really thought they were ever capable of. And I know that sounds really like uh maybe I don't know, like overly positive or like dream world, but like I guess that's just my belief of like inclusion is about supporting people. And that could be in any number of ways. It does not always have to be identity driven. It could be skill development, like that's inclusion work. It could be being a good friend to someone, like that's inclusion work. It could be letting somebody wear, girls' jeans to work, like that's inclusion work. I don't think we have to limit what we qualify as like being in inclusion.
I don't think it's overly positive. I think what it paints it to do is something that is actually so much more accessible than people realize. I think when we talk about allyship and inclusion, particularly in 2025, we see it as this big demanding thing with so many different things to remember. But actually, it really is as simple as kindness, empathy, a bit of understanding and acceptance. It's so simple.
Yeah, again, like you don't have to be um like, you don't have to have a master's or like a
Right.
PhD or a college degree to be in the work of inclusion. Like none of that matters. Like
Yeah.
in terms of your own ability to drive inclusion.
Yeah, not at all, not at all. I know we talk about it a lot, we create space, but it comes down to the fact of leadership really is leading by example as well. And it's not what you think it is not the big thing that you think it needs to be.
Yeah, and I could not agree with that more. I think that's part of why you and I are so passionate about being at We Create Space, right?
Yeah.
And like enjoy the work because yes, you and I are leaders and like we are leading people. But it's so much more than that. Like we're
Yeah.
leading change. Like we're leading for ourselves. Like we're leading, yeah, in a multitude of ways that isn't just limited to being a people manager, right? There's a massive difference between managing people and leading something.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Within that, and who you are and how you show up in the world, is there someone who has perhaps shaped that the most along the way that you can reference? You know, I mean, and I'm very aware that that's a hard question because it's often more than one people. But is there someone or maybe a handful of people that you think that you've taken a lot from when it comes to how you are now?
Yeah, again, this is tough to answer in an abbreviated fashion, but I'm going to give it a shot. So I think the two people that come to mind are my grandfather and my mom. I think for me, my grandfather was kind of the person who like I most want to like emulate and like embody in the world. Everything, no, I guess not everything, but a lot of what I know and exhibit and attribute when it comes to things like love and family and kindness and empathy and compassion and goodness are things that I learned through experiencing, him as a kid and like stories I hear about him. And it's interesting because I actually feel like while I would still feel that way if, he had been alive longer or like was still alive today, I actually think because he died when I was young, that like I've had to look through that through the lens of grief and like what that means in terms of how I want to carry that forward. And I actually think that's made me better. Like, even though the grief is really tough,
Yeah,
like grieving is hard. And again, he died when I was 11. I'm 39 now. Like, he's been dead way longer than, I even knew him when he was alive. Right. And so, I carry so much of that with me because they are things that mean something to me and my own values.
yeah,
Like I said, my mom has probably been the person I have learned the most about, like how to do hard things from, or, like how to make difficult decisions, or how to run a business. My mom has been in small business and like been a small business owner her whole life. Like a lot of how I know and manage and think about business is because of that. So yeah, I mean, and my mom also is just like a people pleaser, but like not in a bad way. Like in she just cares so much that like everything she does is rooted in love, and like that's how I want to be.
I mean, your grandfather's legacy, your mum, both of those really, really coming through in the you that I know now. So like, that's so beautiful. Um, does happiness and success look and feel how you thought it would?
Absolutely not.
No.
But you know what though? I think I love this question because so much of what I have spent working on in therapy over the last few years, I haven't been in therapy now for 2 years, but like 3 years ago now, I guess, was really rooted in this, in examining like what does success and happiness look like. And so I think there are sort of two things. I don't focus on either of those things. I focus on contentment. That's a word that
Yes.
has more meaning to me than either of those things. I think when I was focused on those things previously, I was actually really unhappy, which is interesting. Um, so I don't focus on those things. But I also think for people who do want to focus on them, there's nothing wrong with that. However, I think they require constant examination. Like you owe it to yourself to be able to define those things at any given moment of your life. And that should change. Like we are people who are evolving in an evolving world. And so like how we define those things has to evolve. When they don't, I'll use my own personal example, right? Like that's the moments where I was my most unhappy, or I felt the most stuck, or I felt the most held back by life. But the moment I was willing to sort of be vulnerable with myself and uncomfortable and examine and sort of say like, oh, I've been chasing these titles or like making this amount of money or wanting to work at these companies. Like none of that mattered. Like none of that made me happy. Like none of it gave me uh the like endorphins or the dopamine or the serotonin that like I needed to feel good about myself.
Yeah. I've said it on here before and I'll say it again. Contentment is so underrated.
It really is. And, I think people are afraid to, I guess, be uncomfortable or like to sort of say, like, I don't want to focus on being successful. Like, success is not a like checklist of like, oh, I've earned this amount of money or like, this is what my job title is or this is how many, houses I own or, vacations I've taken. Like, that's not what success is. Like, I mean, if that's what you want it to be, fine, do that.
Yeah.
But like each of us can define what that means. And so for me, success is not rooted in any of those things. Like, I guess if I were to sort of say, like, what does success mean to me? It's having the space and autonomy to make decisions that are completely aligned with my value set.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. Just put that on a piece of paper. Like,
No, absolutely agree. Again, we whittle it down to such a binary measure because of what we're taught, what we're told is successful, that we actually overlook so much. I would say happiness, but also contentment by doing that. And
yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you and I both, in the last couple of years, have gone through some stuff that has like made us really examine like what that means. And it's been nice to have other people to experience that with who maybe are going through completely different things, but like wanting to do that work and examine those things. Like, I think it's important to have people around you who are also not static, right? And who want to change and who are willing to engage in that level of conversation. And like, I hope I have expressed it enough times to you. And like, if not, I'll say it here. Like, I value that you constantly are checking in with yourself and others to sort of say, like, is this serving me? Is this how I want to do something? Is this, what we need to do? Or like, why are we doing it this way when it doesn't have to be this way? Like, I need more of that in my life because I've always been the type of person who just is like, I have a goal. I know exactly how I'm going to get there. And the ambiguity of anything else is like too, like, it like shuts my system down. But you embrace that. And so it's helped me embrace it.
I fucking love digging into those conversations with friends though. And actually I wish that more of my friends, no shade, but I wish that more of my friends would dive into those conversations and get into that nitty gritty because it makes for really stimulating conversation. And it's just, it's another way of being vulnerable and you can support each other through it. I wish that more people, were not afraid to have those conversations.
Well, I think keep doing what you're doing, Neil, because I think you bring that out in people in ways that 99% of the population could never.
Thank you so much. But this is about you, not about me. So my final question for you for this segment is looking back so far, what are you most proud of to date?
This is, I'll be honest, probably the simplest question for me to answer. Just being here, like just surviving. Like I never thought I would make it this far. I really didn't. Like it took a lot of therapy for me to break the mindset of that, like I'm going to attempt suicide again and this time it will like be effective, right? I don't feel that way. Like I don't have those thoughts anymore. And so like just surviving and like being here to have this conversation and I'll feel this again tomorrow, right? Like just being here is the thing I'm the most proud of. It's been the thing that has taken the most work. It's been the thing that's taken the most effort, but it's also been the thing that's brought me the most joy.
The House of Happiness is London's ultimate sober clubbing extravaganza. We're led and delivered but created for all, whether teetotal, sober curious or just taking a booze snooze. We love a day rave and on a Saturday afternoon you can expect banging house tunes, DJs on decks, dancers on podiums and a fully stocked alcohol-free bar. Flamboyant, bold, with a glitter station to boot. We're all about safe, inclusive fun, and we even have a pre-meet so that you can make new sober buddies before you hit the dance floor. Grab your tickets from Instagram now at House of Happiness Official, and we'll see you on the dance floor. Are you ready for some quick fire questions?
Oh, God, I mean, I don't know. We'll try. Let's do it.
Here we go. What album, book, or movie has had a lasting impact on you?
Dashboard Confessional MTV Unplugged album.
Okay. Why?
Well, they're my favorite band. But it's I mean, I don't know how many MTV Unplugged albums you've listened to, but like they're all pretty great. But there's just something really wonderful and special about the songs and the set list and the way they engage with the audience. And they've brought so much of that into so many of their shows that I've been at in the future. And I think that album was maybe the first time I like felt something deep, like in my heart from music.
Okay. Check it out.
Yeah.
What's the saying you live by and one that you put in the bin?
I would say live by life is too short to read bad books and to eat bad food.
Okay.
I guess I would put in the bin anything that's sort of the like, if I can do it, so can you, or like it gets better, like it's patronizing and like devaluing the person's experience.
Toxic positivity, yeah.
100%. Like screw all of them.
So mine is, it is what it is. I think you know that already.
Oh, God.
Do you ever catch yourself saying them and then like really fucking kick yourself?
Oh, totally. Like I don't say all the time, but like I think back, especially before, I guess maybe I had a better handle on like using stuff from therapy. Like that's sort of what I'd be like, oh, like I'm educated. Like I've been in therapy. Like if I can do it, so can you. Like absolutely fucking not. Like not everyone can do it. Like that's the reality, is like not everyone can do what I have done. Not everyone can do what you have done. I can't do what somebody else has done. Like that's just reality.
It's so true, and it's what makes our journeys and our stories and our resilience, particularly as queer people, so unique.
Yeah. I could not agree more.
Yeah. And what's been the best adventure of your life so far?
Oh God. Honestly, I think these last 2 years, like I have had the luxury to be able to travel and go to places I never thought I was going to be able to go to.
And spend considerable amounts of time in those places as well.
Yes. That has been a gift. I'm so glad that the universe sort of had lined up in a way that I was able to go experience those things. So yeah, that easily. Like I would not have traded any of that experience for the world.
And you went to Italy, Argentina, yes. South Africa. Where else? Where am I missing?
And then London. I spent like nearly 6 months in London last year.
And it's home for the foreseeable, right? Yeah,
it is. So yeah. But again, like I never thought I would go to like anywhere in Africa, right? Like that was never a thing I thought I was going to have, you know, the time to do, the money to do, the like fortitude to go do by myself. Like, yeah, it just once in a lifetime. And I'm so glad I embraced it, my opportunity to go do it.
What's been the biggest lesson that you took from spending that time by yourself on such an epic 2 years of adventure?
I think what I really needed from all of that travel and what I got from it was just a reminder I'm capable. I don't have to define it maybe beyond that, but like I was really feeling doubt about just like myself and like what I was bringing to the world. And so it gave me, I guess, my own self-belief back that like I can go do anything. Yeah. Which sounds, oh God, I feel like this is my eat, pray, love moment, but like, it's fine.
Well, because it came at quite an eat, pray, love moment, right? The whole travel thing came at one of those moments.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I just left a, nearly 10-year relationship. Yeah. Like I left I don't want to say I left. I was fired from a job. Like I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Was just sort of, entering, like my newer role at We Create Space. Like there was a lot of transition happening in my life. Like I just, moved again. Like, I lived in 4 states in 2 years. Like it was a lot. There was a lot going on in my life. And I just was feeling so depleted and like needed to feel like, okay, I can go and I can have a life that's mine and that's meaningful to me, without any other definition or, um, yeah, reflection of like what that meant for any other relationship in my life, like friends, family, intimate, like didn't matter. Like I needed to go live for myself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's funny how travel makes us realize how capable we can be. I've definitely felt that too. My final question for quickfires is, what three words would you use to describe you and your origin story?
Oh gosh. Okay. Silly. Duh. I mean, I'm like
Fan of,
I'm silly goose.
fan of fan.
Nerdy, because I love nerdy shit and like books especially. Um, and this might be two words, but like I would say grief informed. Like grief has just been such a strong part of my life and identity that like, yeah, I would say that. So maybe that counts as four, but I'm gonna say that's hyphenated, so I'm gonna count it as three.
We'll take three. We'll take three. Let's fast forward a little bit. What exciting things do you have coming up?
I mean, the biggest thing is that I just moved, like
Yeah,
that I'm in London. Like that for me, again, like I knew when I came here last year that I wanted to find a pathway to live here, and now I'm here. And so I'm just excited to like revel in all of the wonderfulness that exists by living here. So that's what I'm most excited about, is to like experience London in ways that I have not yet.
yeah. I'm so excited to see you settle into community as well. That's what I'm excited about you being here, is to see you absolutely smashing it and making the most of having that on your doorstep.
Yeah, well, I'm excited that you get to be a part of that with me. So,
Me too.
you know,
Me too.
there's some very personal, I guess, excitement for me of like having someone like you here who loves to go out and do stuff and is so like interested in different things, but is also someone I like really trust and like enjoy spending time with. So there's a lot of joy in that for me.
Same goes. Same goes. Same goes. What brings you joy?
Oh God. I think the better question is like, what doesn't? Like, I like it doesn't take like you could give me like a piece of aluminum foil and like I'm gonna have a great time playing with it. You know, like, um, I mean, I think right now like I love a good book, like good fantasy books, good food. Like anyone who says like the food in London is not great, like clearly doesn't know where to go eat. And low key obsessed with K-pop Demon Hunters right now. Like I like can't get enough. I listen to the album at least 2 to 3 times a day. Like if we hang up, I'm probably gonna go watch it again. Like it's so good.
I haven't, music wise, yes, I haven't watched it, but yes, music wise, I'm into it.
You have to come over. Just like come on, let's just go
Okay.
watch it.
Okay. I'm down. I'm down. That what doesn't, like that simple response of what doesn't says so much about you. Um, what takeaways do you have for anyone listening, practical takeaways, wanting to carve out a career in inclusion or or create an inclusive space?
Oof. I think the career, I maybe said this earlier, and I think it is worth, repeating again of like, you don't you don't have to wait to like get the job to do the work. Like
Yeah.
you can start doing inclusion work right now, today. It doesn't matter what your role is, doesn't matter what industry you're in. There's something that you can do today that'll make that space better for everyone. I would also say read a lot. Again, like you don't have to have a big formal like education to get a job in this field. If you can, and that's what you want to do, I say go do it. But just read. Like reading is a thing that's going to expand your mind the most. And volunteer. Like get involved in community organizations. It's a great way for you to establish yourself and to network. I think being in this space in particular, networking is probably the single most important skill set to have, because so much of the work is about intersectionality and being connected to people. And so putting yourself out there to meet people is how you start to build your network to help you navigate like where your talents can go.
Yeah, I can definitely agree. Those both volunteering and networking have changed the trajectory of not just my career, my life. It just totally resonates in that's something that we really share in common in the way that we kind of like approach spaces and the importance of showing up, the importance of giving back, the importance of, as I always talk about this podcast, not just listening to someone's story, but hearing and feeling it as well. My final question for you is this. Do you have any words of encouragement or wisdom for anyone out there to help them get to wherever they're going?
Oof. Yeah, I do actually. I would say one thing that I've taken from therapy, and I come back to this a lot whenever I sort of feel like stuck in my own head or like stuck in life, is thoughts are not facts.
Oh, yeah.
Feelings are not facts. Like only facts are facts. And so you have to be able to take a minute to just breathe, step outside yourself, and really ask yourself is, what I'm thinking or what I'm feeling doesn't mean it's not real. Like it doesn't mean it's not valid, but if it's not a fact, like don't make decisions in your life based off of that. So I think that would be sort of the first thing. And I think maybe more than anything, like, I guess if you need a reminder that like someone is out there like rooting for you or like believing in you, like come back to this recording. Like I'm that person. Like I may not know you, we may not ever meet, but like I'm rooting for you. I believe in you. Like you are not a burden. Like you are so worthy of joy and like being liberated in joy. And so don't let anybody take you out of that. I don't care who it is. So yeah, that's what I would say.
What a note to end on. Thank you so much for saying yes to being a guest. And thanks for being you and a big part of my life. I appreciate you massively. I think you know that. And yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome. The feeling is very mutual. And I can't wait to like debrief about this once we hit stop.
Okay, hitting stop right now. Cheers. Thank you so much, JP, for taking time to be a guest on Pause and Rewind. That really was about the fourth or fifth conversation that we'd already had that day, but one that was really, really special and one that I really, really cherish as well. I love JP. I love our working relationship and our friendship, but above all else, how JP shows up in the world. And yeah, he's silly and he's fun and he's really thoughtful and considerate. And it just shines through in the way that he shares his story and the way that he amplifies other people's stories and experiences as well. I really do remember that one of those first conversations with JP where I was having a bit of a spiral and he said, are you looking for a solution or just looking for me to listen and to talk? And it was just really helpful and it's helped frame my way. And I loved the way he shared that some of those tools that he uses are just tools that he's picked up in his own experience of therapy as well. Loved hearing about little JP's obsession with Dumbo and put the potential reasoning behind that as well. And asking that question, what brings you joy? And his simple response being, what doesn't? Absolutely love this conversation and hearing all about your beautiful relationship with your mum and your grandfather, JP. I hope, again, that you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Please do share it with those that you think might want to listen. Liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing helps to take these conversations to a wider audience. These stories deserve to be heard. So stay tuned for more amazing guests on Pause and Rewind, and I'll be back soon. Cheers.